All right, we're going to use take notes today, and we're going to focus on multiplying mixed fractions. So mixed fractions, that's a mixed fraction right there. And we're going to use an area model. And an area model is basically using rectangles. So I'm going to go through a couple examples that we did in class today when the board wasn't working, so I couldn't record it. So the first question is to multiply 4 1/3 times 6. And the strategy that we used in class that you are supposed to use in your homework tonight is to make an area model. And so just draw a rectangle, and you're going to use the distributive property that we learned in the beginning of the year. So not only are you using an area model, but you're going to use the distributive property. So, just a refresher, the distributive property is a way to multiply two numbers when you break a number up. So instead of thinking this is 4 1/3 as one piece, you can think of it as two pieces. So 4 1/3 we can break up. We're going to multiply that by 6. So we're going to take our rectangle and we're going to just sort of use this as a visual aid. It doesn't have to be drawn to scale. But after you set that up, you just multiply these two numbers and put that answer here. 4 times 6 is 24. And then you multiply these two numbers. And so 1/3 of 6 is 2. If you don't know where I got that, remember last week we multiplied fractions, simple fractions. And 1/3 times 6 can be written as two simple fractions because 6 is the same as 6 over 1. So to multiply 1/3 times 6, if you can't do that with mental math, you can do this. Multiply the numerators and you get 6. Multiply the denominators and you get 3. So 1/3 times 6 is 6 over 3, which is equal to 2. So once you do that scratch work, you take what's inside the area model and you add the parts together and you get your final answer. So 4 1/3 times 6 is 26. So we'll do that one more time with this example here. So for example 2, we're going to draw another area model, which is just a rectangle. It's nothing fancy. And we're going to do 4 2/3 times 9. So again, just divide your rectangle into two parts. And then the 2/3, will be the bottom part. And the 4 will be the top part. So 4 times 9 is 36. And then 2/3 times 9. So remember, you can think of that 9 as a 9 over 1, and you multiply the numerator, so you multiply 2 times 9 and you get 18. And then you multiply the denominators, 3 times 1 is 3. In other words, if you're having trouble doing that in your head, you're going to do 2/3 times 9, but you're going to treat 9 like a fraction, so you write 9 over 1. Multiply the numerators and you get 18. Multiply the denominators and you get 3. 18 over 3 is 6. And then your final answer comes from adding those two numbers together, 36 plus 6, which is 42. So that's the basic problem, and then they get more complicated. So if we take a look at example 3, we now have a mixed number times a mixed number. But just going to do the same thing. We're going to make an area model. So here's the area model. It's just a rectangle. And I'm going to multiply 3 1/2 times 2 1/4. So I'm just going to take my rectangle and divide it into 4 parts. So I have more parts now because I have 2 mixed numbers. So I multiply 2 times 3 and I get 6. And then I multiply 2 times 1/2. That's the same as 1/2 of 2. And I get 1. And remember, if you have trouble with that, you can just multiply, make 2 a fraction. And you multiply the numerators and you get 2, and the denominators you get 2. 2 over 2 is 1. Same thing here. We can think of 3 as 3 over 1. So we're multiplying 3 over 1 times 1 over 4. So that's 3/4. And the final part, we're multiplying 1/4 times 1/2. So multiply the numerators. 1 times 1 is 1. Multiply the denominators. 4 times 2 is 8. So this is a little bit bigger problem. So we have 4 parts to add together. In other words, if you look back at the other page, we had to add the 2 parts together and get our final answer. Now we're adding 4 things together. So from this box, we're going to add everything in the box. We're going to add 6 plus 1. So you could also do that with mental math. Plus 3/4 plus 1/8. So that's 7. And I'm going to change that 3/4. Go back to a single page here so it's a little bit bigger. Let's move this down a little bit. So this makes 7. And then the 3/4 I'm going to switch to 8ths with my common denominator strategy. So 6/8 plus 1/8. So altogether I get 7 and 7/8. So the final answer to this problem is 7 and 7/8. And then the last example, just a little more practice. This would be a good time if you're at home to pause the screen and try this one by yourself and then play and see how you did. So I'm going to take 1 7/8 and I'm going to multiply that by 2 2/5. I'll be dividing this again into parts. And then I have 4 pieces to figure out. So 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 2/5 is 2/5. 2 times 7/8 is 14/8, which is also equal to 1 6/8, or 1 3/4. So I just simplified. And remember, to do that, I'm thinking of 2 as 2 over 1. And then I'm going to multiply 7/8 times 2/5. So multiply the numerators. 7 times 2 is 14. And the denominators. 8 times 5 is 40. That reduces to 7/20. So the last piece is adding all the parts together. So I'm going to add this, plus this, plus this, and this. Right down here. And simplify. So 2 plus 1 3/4 plus 2/5 plus 7/20ths. And to do that, I add the whole parts, that's 3. I need some common denominators. My common denominator, the least common multiple of 4, 5, and 20 is 20. So that's my common denominator. So I'm going to multiply this by 5 and this by 4s. So I get 3 plus 3 times 5 gives me 15/20ths plus 4 times 2 is 8/20ths plus 7/20ths. Adding all that together, I get 3, 15, and 8, and 7. 7 and 8 make 15, plus 5 more make 20. So that's 30/20ths. And that's the same thing as 3 plus 1 and 10/20ths, which is 4 and 1/2. So zoom out, take a look at the notes for the day. And way up here, that's a big problem that we just did, example 4. The answer is 4 and 1/2. That was example 3. On your work tonight, you will be doing just some skill practice, and you're going to be drawing an area model for each problem that you were assigned.